So it's Sunday and doing a bit of a Sunday ritual, having a switch around with some of my music equipment, trying some new things out. I just thought I'd make a video to kind of show some of the differences between some of the kind of looper and granular bits of gear I've got, and just to sort of demonstrate how they change a little. This is a bunch of sounds playing from the Nebulae. This is a Qubit Nebulae. This is a couple of years old now. And this is really good for, I tend to sort of drop sounds into it. So it can do three things. You can either use it as like a little sampler, so you can play sounds out of it. You can use it like a sort of looper, so you can kind of record other bits of music gear into it. And you can also use it live, so it can take a real-time signal and process that as well, which I have to say about most of the time, because I use these small cases rather than big ones now, I use it mainly for playing sounds back, so sort of remixing things or little loops or ideas that I might have that I haven't done anything with. I'm like, okay, I'll drop it in this and see if I can turn it into something new. This is just going through into this new module by Mutable Instruments called Beads, which is an update to their Clouds module. And then it's going to this little headphone module as well by ALM. So if I just unfreeze this, it's just frozen at the moment, so it's a little less distracted with me chatting over the top of this sound. Now what's really nice about this is it uses like elastic audio, so a bit like a modern DAW like Ableton. You can slow it down without altering its pitch, which is nice for getting interesting textures. And you see at the moment, you can kind of hear two different elements to the sound. You've kind of got a tonal quality, and then you've got this sort of slightly rhythmic, granular quality. And it's because Nebulae does two things and blends those techniques together. So you've got a phase vocoder, which if I turn it all the way to the phase vocoder setting, you get this more tonal stretch kind of sound. And then it also has the granular sound, which is more of the grain components, which you can hear it on this side. So this is spacing out the sounds a bit. Let me turn my voice up a bit. So yeah, I like this. There's other machines and modules on the market, like the Morphogene is a common one, and the R-Bar as well by Instro, who make this Oct by DivKid. I really like it for this sound, which is, I haven't heard it in that much stuff. And with certain sounds, you get really lovely, it's really lovely for sound design. So any of these, you can bring them back to normal by just tapping up this encoder, and it will bring it back again. And that works with pitch as well. So this will keep the timing. And lower the pitch. So it's like a pitch shifter. And I really like this. So it's a bit different to some of my other gear. Like I've got a Coco Quantus here, and this is really lovely for pitching things down, but it will change the the tempo and the speed together. So sometimes if I'm exploring things, chucking them into this just to have something in hardware to explore pitch and tempo, just as a machine that can do that is really helpful. So, and especially with some of my gear that I'm mucking about with the sample and slowing things down, if it's tape or something, it's not precise necessarily working to particular notes or frequencies, so you can, you know, these are great for dialing them in. Again, you can tap it to bring it back to the original, and if you press and hold it and twist it, it will work in octaves, which is quite cool. And bring it back to normal. So then what have we got here? Start and size. So start is the beginning of part of the sample. So this is essentially bringing the end part of the buffer towards the end of the sample. So you can sort of find these interesting like little loops or grooves. The size is kind of like the length. So if I bring this down, sort of, you've gone like that, and now you're shrinking the actual. So remember, this is in the phase vocoder mode. If I turn this back around to the granular slide, you sort of get it's just different textures. If you bring the overlap down, you start to get more. The grains don't overlap, so you kind of get more clicky, sort of plucky sounds. And then the window is kind of a little bit like the envelope shape of the grains. It's not quite the same as this one, but again, it will sort of help change the shape. Maybe makes it a bit more percussive. So you can kind of get a blend of the two. The density is how many grains are happening at any one time. So if I bring this down, it's going to make it more sparse. So these are sort of fading in and out based off this kind of shape, and the overlap is just how they're sort of mixing over the top of each other. In this mode. Oh, you see, this is super quiet. So we need to. So this is an issue with the nebulae, which is different to, say, something like beads. Modular levels are a lot hotter, a lot higher. You need a lot louder level, like volume. So something like this is so quiet you can't hear it. So I would need to go through a mixer or another module to bring the levels up suitable to record straight into this. So a little less immediate, needs more equipment, more things being set up. So I can't do that and show you that on this one. But maybe that's a good way to segue to the new beads module. Clouds used to have like a gain control, but yeah, they've got rid of that now with this one, and it automatically sets the levels for you. So yeah, this is a wet and dry control. Let's bring in beads and see what it sounds like. If it's doing anything, I don't think it should be at the moment. No. And the reason why is because density and this seed button aren't enabled. So you can latch this by, you can either hold it for 4 seconds, or you can press it and then use this to latch it. And that will fade in and out. And that means it's on this grain distribution mode. So as soon as you add some density in, at the moment it's not emitting any grains. If you turn it one way or the other, it will start sampling the live recording and reproducing it as small, tiny sounds. And the more you turn it, so I'll do it this way so you can see, the more intense it gets. If I turn it 100% wet, that's actually what beads is creating. This is a new feature which is really cool. So this is like the envelope of the bead, so the grain shape, and the size of the grain. So with these two, at the moment it's got a sharp attack and a bit of a decay, so it's quite sort of plucky and percussive. If you keep going around this way, it's smoother, like slower attack and decay, until it's more of a longer attack and shorter decay. And then right here, it's just very blocky, very chunky grains. This is probably the easiest setting to kind of show you how it works in relation to the size of the grain. So if I turn the grain up, this increases the sound, the duration of these like little blips. So if I slow the attack down again, it's softer. So it's kind of sounding quite similar to the original now. But so I'm 100% on beats at the moment. If I change the pitch, it should. This is working like a pitch shift. Sense. At the moment, obviously, this is a tempo, was it 112 BPM? This has got no clock or tempo information into it, so this is just done by ear. This is going counterclockwise. If you go clockwise, it's a bit more organic. Starts to pan left and right on the outputs, and the distribution's not as linear. That's quite nice. So you can see already the difference between the two. This one is a bit easier to use for having more control of the individual grains. rather than a loop, in this mode anyway. You can also reverse the grains as well, which is quite nice. Yeah, so that's beats, and I'll show you how that compares to the Coco Quantus as well, because that's an interesting one in the same sort of area. So bear with me one sec. So this is slightly different. This works with banana jacks, which is different to Eurorack format, which uses these sort of jacks which look like sort of headphone size jacks. These use these bad boys called banana jacks, which you can stack. It's a different format. I quite like it. It just feels different, which is cool. So yeah, this thing is it's essentially it's a delay. So it's got a delay engine in. So it's got two delays. It's this one here and then this one, and this is a modulation section. So this you can set get a signal out of this to affect the delays. So it's a bit like a fancy delay pedal, but everything's kind of disconnected, so you can make your own connections of it. So it's pretty weird. When you first turn it on, these are sorry, I should say that you've got two stereo inputs at the front and another piezo input, which can be used for contact microphones, or you can send signals into here as well, and it's got a microphone input as well, and then just a single output out the back. So this is kind of another standalone machine. You can get sounds out of it without anything plugged in as well. But yeah, we're going to look at it, how this sort of granular looping sampling thing might work on something like this in comparison to the other two. So when you first turn it on, you can hear this in your right speaker or right headphone, and this one in your left, really noisy and lo-fi. So the actual delay buffers, when you first power it on, are filled with noise. So you've got to go through a bit of a ritual to clear this noise. So you have to turn these speed knobs up to full blast. You turn the input and the feedback down. And then you unlatch these two buttons here. This one for this side and this one for this side. And because we turn the speed up, you only need to turn them off and on for a couple of seconds, and that will empty the buffers. So if I turn these up, there's nothing in there now. So it's like empty recordings. So that's full blast. So if I put them back down to just less than 12 o'clock, these are like feedback control. So if anything over that, you'll gradually get more feedback. So just going to turn them so that it doesn't go crazy. Let's try playing some sounds through. Can't hear anything at the moment. That's because the input gains are down. So you hear this in the left and in the right. That's quite nice. You can overdrive. It's got quite a nice overdriven sound to it, just running sounds through, which is quite nice. Just load that. But we're not going to do that. We're going to try and get something a bit cleaner. And also, these buttons are called Dolby switches, so they kind of help clean up the sound a little bit when you're recording into it. So at the moment, because that speed because these are sort of latched in, kind of like lock the buffer mode rather than live listening. Does that make sense? No, probably not. At the moment, we've just locked the delays to sort of capture what was in the delays recording buffer, which there's nothing because we had all the knobs turned down. So if I unlatch it, let's do it on the left side first, you'll start hearing it running through the delay. So if I turn this delay speed down a bit, so if I did that, let's turn these down for a minute. We've got a recording of part of the AP1 in the left delay buffer. That's just captured it, it's just locked it so it's not decaying. So I could do that to the right as well. Let's grab another bit, let's put something in. Record something on the right. And what's really nice about this is, you know, essentially now that you've got two little recordings, you can alter the pitch of them, a bit like a vinyl record player or a tape cassette. So if I turn this one up, I'm just doing this by ear, but you can kind of find like nice little moments. I'll turn this one down. Now, as you slow them down, the quality reduces, which can create quite a nice sound. So this is, you know, there's nothing coming from this. This is just two buffers in here at the moment, doing pretty standard stuff. Whereas the other two is more about dialing in sounds. This machine is more about patching stuff. So I'm just going to unplug this for a minute. Move that out of the way. Let's show you what some of this stuff does in the middle. So, Ciat Lonbarde call this the Quantussy. I should say actually this is a Ciat Lonbarde Coco Quantus 2 is its full name. Designed by an engineer artist called Peter Blasser. This one was actually made by Patch Point in Berlin, so they're hand built. Yeah, so if I show you, basically this has 5 oscillators, LFO sources, and they're all related to each other. So you've got one kind of speed control, and then this is called a chaos control. I won't go into it too much in this video because I just want to be comparing the sort of sampling side of things. But these essentially have outputs which you can input into these 2 delay channels. So the kind of things you can control on each delay are the speed. You can control VCAs, so essentially these level controls. You can use the LFOs to control them. So these two would be in use when you're going into it. Obviously we've not got anything plugged in now, so they're a bit redundant. But these two are essentially this volume knob. So if I take these red ones are triangle shapes, waveforms. So if I pop something into that, these change the speed. So that's kind of like slow, middle, slow, fast, in the middle somewhere. Now see, this is just doing a ramp triangle shape. These ones are called castle outputs, which is sort of like a sample and hold kind of pulse shape, so it's a bit sharper. Give you an idea of how that sounds. That's quite smooth actually. I thought that'd be a bit more on and off and on. Yeah, so it's very unpredictable, chaotic machine. You know, this very different approach. This is about happy accidents and having a sort of call and response sort of play with the machine. The other things you can do has these flip and skip inputs. So I'll turn that off for a minute. Flip changes the direction of the sample. So depending on how fast one of these is set, you can get pretty wild. What's happening? Super lo-fi, but really lovely. Yeah, so these things you can stack them. So you could take that same signal and put it to both of them. So you see now what was a bit of a delay is starting to kind of take on a bit more personality sort of to one of the Eurorack sort of granular samples in terms of the actual, some of the sounds of, you know, this kind of grain approach. The other thing that's really nice is the skip inputs. So this uses a pulse modulation source to sort of turn to mark a start point, hold the pulse, and then kind of release the sound. So when you're getting some of these castle inputs into these, you're getting really weird stutter results. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting for this. You know, this is this idea of kind of like freezing a sound and then manipulating it again as a source is another option. You see, we can go right down. You get a much really warm sort of digital sounds. You can do things as well, like if it's a bit strange coming out of just that right hand speaker or headphone, you can take that, sort of balance things. Like you say, like all the connections are sort of open, so you can start doing interesting things. That's a Coco Quantus. So yeah, I should say in reflection to ring modulation. There's different ways to get granular sounds out of this stuff. So it really depends what you're doing, whether you're doing more studio work, whether it's more performance based. Things like this are a lot harder to reproduce things or know what you're going to get, whereas maybe some of the sounds like modules like the nebulae and beads are more predictable. You've got a bit more control over what you want to do, so it really depends what you're looking for. It's really helpful for me when I'm writing music to turn this off. It's really useful to have both options, to kind of have things that sort of inspire me, and then sometimes I need to get really specific things which I just don't have time to sit with this for half an hour. But you know, see what works for you. Definitely recommend giving beads a go. It's pretty affordable relatively to the other two. I think it's around about £250. I think Nebulae is around about £500, and this is around about £1,500. So it's definitely beads is worth a look at if you're wanting to kind of get into this world of granular stuff. Software wise, Ableton's got loads of really nice granular stuff. There's Iota, which is a Max for Live plugin by Dylan Bastian, I think his name is, who's also created some new modules for the new version Live 11. And there's also Earcam's granular stuff and Robert Henk's granulizer. Audio Damage have Quanta. There's iPad apps like Borderlands and Sampler. So there's tons of stuff. But I thought it was a good little comparison just to compare 3 bits of weird machines that I have, which I'm playing with on a Sunday. So hope that's helpful. I'll try and post something again soon. All right, bye.